Well, hello everybody and welcome to the SEO webinar and how to structure your website for SEO success. I am Mike Tersini, founder of Merchants Arena. So let's go ahead and get rolling. And just a couple of logistics to start here. You can return to this page after the webinar to see the replay. So there's no need to take intense notes. We're going to cover a lot of material today and we're going to move pretty fast. So I highly recommend that you put all of your focus on this webinar. I know how easy it is to multitask when you're on the computer, but I'm a firm believer that single tasking is the best way to really learn something in a short period of time. Also, if you have any questions, please chat them into the box on the bottom right of your screen and I will address as many as I'm able to at the end. Just keep in mind that there is a 30-second delay before what I see and what comes through on the message screen. If I don't get to your specific questions, not to worry, someone from my team or I personally will follow up with you and make sure that your questions get answered. So let's dive into the subject at hand, which is search engine optimization, also known as SEO. Okay, first things first, why should your business care about SEO? And why should you, given all of the other marketing tools available to you, spend the time and effort to optimize your website for greater visibility in search engines like Google and Bing? Most business owners complain about time constraints and lack of resources for marketing, and most of you have, few extra resources, so you're very protective over how you use them. You don't have a lot of time or patience for experimenting with new strategies or testing unproven theories. So you want to invest your money where it'll have the highest return, and I absolutely get it. Hey, I'm a business owner too. So here's a screenshot of one of our shopping cart accounts from yesterday. We make sales every day and all the time automatically, and the reason, 99% of the reason, is because of SEO, free traffic. So I submit to you that you can't do much better than setting up your SEO properly, and I'll tell you why. 93% of all online experiences begin with a search engine. 97% of consumers search online for local businesses. And finally, the majority of web traffic is driven by the big three search engines, which are Google, with about 2/3 of the market share, followed by Bing and Yahoo. All of these stats tell a pretty straightforward story about how business is conducted in this digital age. Given that so much of our interaction with brands happens online, it's no surprise that businesses are spending a lot of time and money trying to boost their visibility on the web. SEO is just one of those, best ways to do that. It's best because it's effective, it's affordable, and it's absolutely proven. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into the who cares question. Maybe you're wondering, why should you invest in SEO when you can just run ads and leapfrog to the top of the search engines? Well, that's one approach, but it's typically very costly. But the bigger flaw in that approach is simply that it's less effective. People aren't likely to click on sponsored ads. And when they do click on sponsored ads, they are still less likely to actually buy. Right? I've thrown money at AdWords advertising while also having the top rankings and could not find a reason to continue that. It did teach me though how much it was actually worth to have those organic free listings in the top positions. 77% of searchers choose organic over paid listings, and 67% choose organic search results when purchasing. Even more important, organic click-throughs generate 25% higher sales conversion than pay-per-click ads. And as you can see, organic results, the unpaid listings, are where it's at. If you can get your website to show up in the top of the organic results, you're essentially in pole position as a business. More buyers will see your website and become customers. What you're looking at on this slide is a heat map of a search engine results page or a SERP. This reveals what people look at when they perform a search on Google. And as you can see, most of their attention, almost all of it, is focused on the top left of the page. The area known to SEO experts as the golden triangle, right? It's golden because if your website shows up within it, you get a majority of that visitor traffic for that term, and that can mean serious money. When you optimize for search engines, you're trying to show up in the golden triangle, not just on the first page, but at the very top of the first page. Another question I want to address up front is whether or not SEO is a legitimate form of marketing. Some will say it's just a sneaky way to game the system, cut corners, and or trick the search engines into giving your website a ranking it doesn't deserve. And I'm here to dispel that notion. SEO is in fact totally legal and legitimate. Well, to clarify, it's legitimate except when it isn't legitimate. You see, there are two kinds of search engine optimization, and first I'll talk about black hat SEO, and not surprisingly, this is the bad kind. Right? Black hat SEO is what gives all search engine optimization a bad name. It relies on spammy, high-risk strategies that test and routinely cross the boundaries of ethical behavior. Black hat strategies are high risk because Google and other search engines exact tough penalties when they catch people using them. In fact, they won't hesitate to permanently ban a website from the directory altogether. In the past, there were some black hat tactics that worked really well, and there were plenty of unscrupulous consultants who would sell their SEO services to small businesses and apply these tactics, and a lot of these otherwise honest business people got absolutely burned in the process. They'd get in trouble with Google and then they'd have no recourse. These unscrupulous black hat wearing SEOs would just walk away and look for another mark. As Google's ranking algorithm has become more sophisticated over the years, it's much harder to have success with black hat techniques, and it's much easier to get caught. Google devotes an enormous amount of its even more enormous operating budget to not only blocking the efforts of spammers, but in catching them too. Okay, now let's talk about white hat SEO. And yes, this is the Dalai Lama you're looking at here. If His Holiness were a search marketer, he'd surely engage in white hat SEO, aka plain SEO. Don't ask me where I got this image. With white hat SEO, you don't have to worry about any karmic payback, right? It's ethical, and even the almighty Google gives it the green light. In fact, it might surprise you to know that Google itself is one of the best sources of information on SEO, and that should tell you something, if you're concerned about SEO's legitimacy. Google happily helps webmasters and business owners try to improve their positioning in the search results. Okay, now we're going to segue into the next section, how search engines work. And before I go any further, it's time for a little disclaimer. For the next section, I'm going to get a little technical. There's nothing to be scared of. I promise you that there's practical reason for understanding the basics of how search engines work. So here it is. If you know how search engines work, you'll be in a much better position to understand how to build a site that ranks well. Makes sense, right? So here we go. We'll start with the crawling and indexing. Okay, some of you may recognize what this picture is, and some of you may have no clue, depending on when you were born. This is a picture of a card catalog system used by libraries to organize all of the books on their shelves, and making it easy for a visitor to find the book that they're looking for. And that's what the search engines are doing. Search engines have armies of automated robots, they're commonly called spiders, that can crawl through the many billions of web pages, images, videos, and documents that comprise the web. Once the spiders find these pages, they analyze the code and then organize or index selected pieces in massive hard drives and ginormous data centers to be pulled up later when a user punches in a search inquiry. This explains how a Google search takes only a fraction of a second, right? They already have a copy of the entire World Wide Web stored in their servers, so they can show you what you want very quickly, and nobody likes to wait, right? The next important thing that the search engine has to decide is which piece of content out of the billions and billions that they have indexed should get shown to you when you do a search. So how do the big search engines decide who gets top placement? And basically it boils down to two criteria, right? One is relevance and importance. Relevance is somewhat straightforward, right? Does a page talk about the user's query or search term? Does the search term or keyword show up on the page? How many times is on the page? And where is it on the page? In the headline, in the body, in the URL, or all of the above? The second element, which is importance, is a little trickier, and this is where Google and others have to make, more or less a judgment call. In this case, Google takes a democratic approach. They look at which site gets the most votes or links, and Google interprets a link as a vote of confidence for a website. If a site has incoming authority links, Google takes note and gives that site a better position. However, this is not a pure democracy here, right? Some votes count more than others, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. For now, it's critical that you understand why the search engines are doing all of this work, and I'll tell you, because Google wants you to be happy. Right? Google wants users to be happy so that they can return again and again and click on a few ads here every now and then. Because if people aren't happy with the quality of their search results, if they lose faith in Google's ability to deliver useful information, they'll go elsewhere. And so will advertising dollars. And this is a good example of a company's priority lining up with their users. Google truly wants to help you find the information you're looking for. Their future profitability depends on it. Okay, so that's a very high level of how the search engines work. Now let's look at the other side of the equation, how people, people just like you and me, use the search engines. And this part's really important. A huge part of the successful SEO strategy is getting into the mind of your customer and understanding their wants, their needs, and their motivations. You have to temporarily step outside of your role as the seller and occupy the role of the buyer, right? This isn't really easy to do, but if you don't, you have a much harder time being successful. At this point, search engines play such a big role in our lives, it feels like they've been part of our life forever. We forget to step back and think about how we use them. But it's worth thinking about the various steps we take when we conduct a search online, because it's actually pretty involved. And by thinking about these steps, you'll be more able to empathize with your customers and tailor your SEO efforts accordingly. So it all starts with the need for an answer, a solution, or some other bit of information. To get there, we formulate that need in words and phrases, then enter that keyword search term into the search engine, and then we browse through the results for a match, clicking on a result that looks promising, judging by the small amount of text that we see, and then we scan that page for a solution or a link to that solution. And if we don't find what we're looking for, it's back to the search results. And if nothing else looks promising, we start right over, performing a new search with new keyword search term that might yield a better result. In order to train your brain to think like your customer, you're probably going to have to temporarily abandon some of your biases, your habits, and your shortcuts. And let me give you an example of what I mean. So there's an entire industry of businesses that specialize in providing ongoing IT support for other businesses that don't have or can't afford their own internal IT department. These businesses call themselves managed service providers, and because they provide fully managed IT services to other businesses, they call themselves MSPs for short. But here's the thing, no one else calls them managed service providers or MSPs. They're known to the world as IT people or computer support guys, right? No one needs help with their broken computer is going to Google managed service provider. And whatever industry or niche you're in, you've probably adopted its languages and its customs. But for SEO purposes, you need to also adopt the language and customs of your customers. If your messaging isn't optimized for them, you're not speaking to them. You're just speaking to your colleagues and competitors, right? Needless to say, that's just really not going to help you. So if you take one thing from this webinar, I want it to be this, right? Build for people, not for Google, right? Build for people, and have that ingrained in your DNA. But it's important that you know that this is the bedrock principles of good SEO, right? Never lose track of the fact that you're trying to reach people. These are the people who buy your products and your services. Okay, so we've talked about how search engines work and how people use search engines. Now let's segue into how you can design and or modify your website to improve its visibility. The stuff I'm going to talk about in this section is mostly invisible to people that visit your website, but it's critical behind the scenes stuff that's really important for the search engines. One of our primary goals when doing SEO is to make it easy for the search engines to find and index your site. Okay, first it's important to understand that search engines don't look at web pages the same way that humans do. For starters, search engine spiders are image blind. They can read text, but they can't see graphics, photos, or illustrations. And not yet anyways. I mean, Google is probably working hard at trying to remedy this, but it might be a few years before spiders can interpret the contents of an actual image. And until then, you need to make sure that your site is conveying enough text-based information so that the spiders can successfully determine whether your site is relevant for any given search term. If most of your website content is non-verbal, right, image-based, you're not giving the spiders much information to go on, and it'll be much harder for you to rank for your preferred terms. And this is a big mistake that a lot of businesses make with their websites. They just want them to look pretty, so they put these big flashy images on them, but not enough text, right? This virtually guarantees that your site will not rank well. Spiders are unlike us in that they can't see images, but they are very much like us that they follow links when they visit a website. So if the pages in your website are not linked together in a very clear way, the spiders won't crawl through and index your entire site. Some people experience unlinked pages, which are called orphans, right? They don't get indexed. They're not linked to anything, and it makes it much harder for you to make a case about your relevance. One of the surest ways to make sure that all of your pages get indexed is to have a good linked navigation structure that promotes easy crawling. Another way to help the search engine spiders is to use robots, right? Specifically the robots.txt file, which gives instructions to search spiders. By using the robots.txt file, you can tell search engines which areas of the site they should and should not crawl, making it easy for the search engines to find your good content. Next are what are known as sitemaps, and sitemaps are another tool you can use to make life easier for Google's overworked spiders. A sitemap is a list of files that essentially gives hints to search engine spiders on how they can crawl your website. They help search engine spiders find and classify content on your site that they may not have found on their own. Again, the easier you can make it for search engine spiders, the better your chances of ranking higher in the search results. Another great way to help the search engines is to ping them anytime you create new content for your site. And when you publish content, it's always a good idea to make sure to notify or ping the major blogging tracking services like Google or Technorati or Yahoo that you've created new content. And doing this will let the search engines know that you have great new content. Come index it, right? And this will increase the likelihood that your site will get indexed again and climb in the rankings. The nice thing is that there are a lot of tools and services out there that automate the process, so you don't really have to do anything. How you structure your URLs is another important thing to consider. The URL is the address of your website. Their structure has an impact on the spiders and, of course, your human readers also. In general, you want your web pages to have URLs that are short and static, like not dynamic, that are descriptive and hyphenated if they're just a bit on the long side. You know, and why is shorter better? Well, it's easier to read for one thing, and it's also easier to remember and share. Also, remember that your URLs actually appear in the search results, right? If your URL is too long, it will appear cut off or truncated in the results. Also on this slide, you'll see in red an example of a dynamic URL structure, which doesn't provide much in the way of a description at all. It's not helpful to humans or spiders. Right? Static URLs like the one in green are better because they communicate more information and they won't change over time. You want your URL to be descriptive of the content that is on the page, and this is helpful to both the search engines and to your visitors. And lastly, you want to use hyphens and not any other character to separate words in your URL. Hyphens are the most commonly used understood separators. Those are the ones to use. And on this slide, you'll see an example of a URL from copyblogger.com that has all of these important characteristics. Okay, so those were some of the more technical things that you can do to help your site rank higher. Most businesses don't pay attention to any of those things, and their rank suffers because of it. And moving right along, you know, we're going to switch gears and talk about the ins and outs and do's and don'ts of content creation as it pertains to search engine optimization. And the most important thing about creating content is that you realize that ultimately it's real people who buy your stuff, right? Not search engine spiders. You can only get so far if you focus all of your efforts on persuading Google. In the end, you've got to persuade flesh and blood people to take action, right? For people, not for the search engines. Content is still the undisputed king of the internet. You know, without good content, you're not going to get very far in your efforts to improve your visibility. You've got to make a point to create some compelling content that your customers will find useful, timely, and engaging. And I want to clarify one thing. You know, there's a difference between engaging content and link bait, right? Link bait is a term used to describe content that exists purely for the purpose of getting clicks. And this kind of content is the junk food of the web, right? It's high in calories but low in nutritional value. And it doesn't drive the kind of traffic you want anyway. So, focus on creating high value content, not link bait. Great content starts with keyword research. Keyword research is one of the most important activities in SEO. After all, search all begins with the words that your customers type into the search box, right? Ranking for the right keywords is the ultimate goal for search engine optimization, because ranking for the right keywords will help you draw the right visitors to your website. The people who are ready, willing, and able to purchase your widgets. So keyword research is absolutely critical if you want to maximize the return on investment of your optimization efforts. And there's several things to consider when choosing which keywords to focus on in your website. The starting point, of course, is relevance. If you sell vacuums, you're going to focus on vacuum related keywords. But relevance is just one of many considerations. You also need to consider the volume of searches and the competitiveness of a given keyword. You need to think of the intention behind a given keyword. And for example, consider the motivation behind the keyword cheap vacuum, right, compared with the term best vacuum. Let's say you specialize in selling high-priced Dyson machines that are so powerful that you have to make sure that your small animals are out of the room, right, when you're vacuuming. You're obviously going to want to optimize for the term best vacuum, because that's what you're selling. If you optimize for the other term, you're going to draw a lot of unqualified traffic to your site, right? People who just can't afford or don't need or don't want what you sell. And this sounds pretty basic, and it is, but you'd be surprised to learn how often businesses pick keywords simply because they have high volume, even when less used keywords would drive higher traffic and quality of traffic, which would result in more conversions and sales. The next most important thing when creating content is frequency, and what I mean by that is you want to frequently create new, fresh content for your visitors and for the search engines. And it's not so much the frequency, but it's the consistency, right? Search engines know that information is changing all the time, right? They want the most up-to-date information, so it dispatches spiders to crawl and index, every web page that it can find. But here's the rub. Google will not recrawl your site if it thinks that your content is stale or hasn't changed. So if your site isn't being crawled, it sure isn't moving up in the ranks. And it probably is moving down as it gets displaced by sites with more and fresher content. So it's super important that you give Google a reason to return to your site on a regular basis. And that means regularly updating and posting content. Including text, images, and videos. One of the strategies when releasing a brand new site is to not launch the entire site at once, and it's just to release the pages as you publish them. Speaking of video, if you aren't using it to market your business, you are missing a huge opportunity. There's a ton of evidence that video is an effective way to climb up in the rankings in a short period of time, even in highly competitive industries, and this is due part because Google classifies videos separately in the search results. So get filming, you don't have to have a film degree to make effective videos for your website. Just be yourself and try to offer some good, useful, or entertaining information for your audience. Another great way to get your content noticed is to create lists, and you've probably noticed this already. Like, the internet is made up of lists and lists of lists, and there's a good reason for this. Google likes the format, and so do people. Since the beginning of time, we've been creating lists, and maybe it's because they tell us in advance what we're going to get. Whatever the reason, I encourage you to create content that fits into this structure, and it'll help your SEO efforts a great deal. Okay, so let's get just a little geeky here and talk code for a minute, specifically meta and title tags. And these are two very important pieces of HTML that you should pay attention to when creating and posting your content. Every page on your website should have a unique and descriptive meta and title tag. The meta tag doesn't actually display on the page, but search engines display this text in the search results, so it should provide good intel for the spiders, and it should be compelling to readers because they're going to use it to decide whether to click through to your website. The text in the title tag gets displayed in two places: in the search listings, where it's the blue clickable text, and at the top of the browser window. It's a great idea to include any relevant keywords in your meta and title tags. But again, err on the side of lower keyword density. Don't overload your keywords. You don't want to look spammy. As I said earlier, spiders are image blind, so you need to describe images and words in order to ensure that your images get properly identified and indexed by the search engines. The alt attribute is where you do this. And most content management systems like WordPress make it super easy to edit the alt attribute of an image. On this slide you can see the HTML code for an image of a smiley face. And notice that alt attribute, which is smiley face. Even though this is very easy to do, it's one of the most underutilized tools on websites. Okay, now we're going to switch gears and talk about off-page optimization. Off-page optimization is an entire webinar in itself, but I do want to touch on a few things. This is the part of SEO that is a little trickier, but very effective. It's trickier because you can't directly control all of the levers. All you can do is try to indirectly influence them. If you recall, Google determines the rank of a page based on two key factors, and one's relevance and importance. And its algorithm determines importance by measuring the popularity of a page, which in turn is determined by the number and quality of links coming back to the page, which are like votes, right, pointing to it. So one of the best ways to demonstrate your importance to Google is to acquire inbound links to your website, but not just any inbound links, like links from other websites that the search engines see as very credible, known as authority sites. Back in the day, a link was a link in Google's eyes, and today Google is more discriminating when it looks at links. If the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal links to your website, Google will be very impressed, and you'll probably see a bump in your rank. However, if Joe Sixpack links to your website, Google will be less impressed. You will not see a bump in your position. So, building relationships and credibility in your industry and marketplace is a very worthwhile endeavor, because relationships and credibility result in, you guessed it, inbound links. Needless to say, there are excellent reasons to nurture relationships and build your credibility that have nothing to do with SEO. It's just good business sense. But know that your efforts in this department will also pay dividends in the SEO department. Here's a link building strategy that's growing in importance as Google begins to incorporate the social web into its algorithm. For a long time, Google's algorithm didn't give much weight to links that came from social media sites like Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, but that's changing, and very fast. Now, in an effort to present fresh, timely information to users, Google has begun to give social media links more weight, and this is a great development for website owners. Not only can you drive traffic and encourage sharing of your content with social media, you can also see a ranking boost because of these inbound links, right? So you want to make sure that you are making it easy for people to refer you on social media networks by including social sharing buttons along with all of your content. And another proven way to increase website traffic is to start a blog. According to HubSpot study, business blogging leads to 55% more website visitors, and that's pretty significant. Now, there are a lot of people out there who think blogging is a waste of time, and you might be one of them, but I submit to you that blogging is still a great marketing tool. And for one thing, it's content, and it's rich content, educational content. That's what's still king, right? So a blog is an excellent platform to publish and organize your content. Also, Google loves blogs, particularly ones that get updated frequently. The blog could be part of your regular website, or it could be an entirely separate site, giving you an additional piece of real estate on the web. Also worth mentioning in this section is directories. Directories are places on the web where you can get your website and your business listed. Directories are great for SEO purposes. They offer an opportunity to get inbound links, for one thing, and they also help search engines and searchers gain more confidence in your website and your business, as they often have real customer reviews. So it's a win-win. Getting listed in directories will help your Google local listing, and because it's proof that you're real. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and I'm going to keep moving quickly so that I don't take up much more of your time. Alright, so let's get into the structure for SEO success. And this is the minimum effective dose strategy that sometimes is just enough to push the site to the top rankings. It entails having a homepage. In this situation, it's computer repair homepage, and several other pages that all have one text link within the text that points back to the homepage. And you're going to variate that text, which is also called anchor text. Anchor text is the blue underlined text that you use to actually link to another page. And you're going to, in some cases, use click here or computer repair experts or PC repair and link back to the home page. This will send PageRank to the home page. The navigation, and in some cases on the side widgets, you'll have navigation to internal pages, other pages within the site. But you should avoid interlinking these pages to each other, just having them link to the home page. This is a more advanced structure where PageRank is pushed to the home page internally from the other pages. You know, sort of like the feng shui of SEO here with the flow. And again, you want to avoid all of this interlinking in order to corral or herd your PageRank. So in the center position here, you have at the bottom PC power supply repair. That has a contextual link that links to PC data recovery, and that has a contextual link that points to PC motherboard repair, and then to PC repair, and then to the home page. So this is the way that you should set up your PageRank flow for SEO success. Okay, so I'd just like to talk another minute on images. When you have your images and you're looking at the file on your desktop, you can right click and open the properties, and once you do that, you'll see some data fields, and you can add keywords and info relevant to the image and the keywords, and then save it. If your photo program has a save for web feature, that will drastically reduce the file size, and any time that you can reduce image file sizes without compromising the quality, you should do so. Then you upload it to your website. Once it's in your website, you would add the alt tag, the alternative text tag, the caption if you wanted to, and a link to the page URL it is on. So many times I see images that point to their image. And what I mean is you click on an image and it goes to a bigger picture of the image. What you want that link to do is to point to the page that it's on. So that picture becomes relevant to the page that it's on and passes PageRank that way. Another big plus is your image can get indexed and show up as yet another position in the search engines, and that link will actually point back to the page and not to a picture of the image. And I also want to talk about some ranking factors that you can control, and one of them is bounce rate. Now, bounce rate is when a visitor lands on your site and presses the back button or leaves the site and doesn't engage. However, there is a flaw in Google's analytics where the way that they count a bounce is if somebody's on your site, but let's say they do engage with your homepage. Let's say they've been there for 3 minutes. They're reading everything that's on your homepage, and then they press their back button. Well, Google still counts that as a bounce. So there's a plugin that you can use that will reduce that, and it's just a very simple WordPress plugin. And what it does is it tells Google that after 10 seconds, that person is engaged. So your bounce rate is lowered. Your overall bounce rate is lowered because anybody who's been on your site for 10 seconds won't count as a bounce. And the other thing that you can control and try to modify is the website load time. So if you go to pingdom.net and enter your URL, it'll do a load test, and recommend doing 2 or 3 of them to get a good average. And it'll tell you how many seconds it takes for your site to load. So it'll also show you some areas that may be causing the issue, like very large images, JavaScripts, and whatever. So whatever you can do to reduce the website load time, half the battle is knowing what you're up against. It'll also give you sort of a comparison as to how it is in relationship to other websites. So here's the deal. SEO is not a silver bullet. You know, it can be hard and time consuming, and sometimes results just don't come as quickly as you'd like. But SEO is worth the investment, and the data proves it, and people testify by it, right? In fact, a Merchant Circle survey of small business owners asked, if you had to put all of your marketing time and budget into only one channel, what would it be? And the answer is SEO, right? SEO is considered the single most important marketing channel for small businesses. Overwhelmed with SEO? Don't be. You can use SEO to improve your visibility and draw more buyers to your front door. And know this, we're here to help you. If you'd like to discuss a potential SEO plan of attack for your business, please feel free to get in touch with us.